My boating days began when I was a teenager around 1970. I took an interest in water skiing. Of course, it was behind other people's boats until my budget finally grew enough to get a couple of jet skis, and then moved up to my first boat, a 21-foot Bayliner. The next boat carried the jet skis, and we were able to bring all of it to the lake with just one tow vehicle. Over the years, as our family needs grew, so did our boating needs. My best friend Robert was in a very similar situation with growing kids and more family. He decided to upgrade to the boat show's latest, greatest family design watercraft called a deck boat. No one had even heard of it before, but soon everyone was making them. It was a real step up from the old flip-up style windshield bow rider. It had an open walk-through hull design, complete with a table, a private toilet, barbecue, lots of room, even a hidden trash can, so we didn't have to hang plastic bags. It had everything but a kitchen sink. Oh, wait a minute. It did have a kitchen sink. And with fresh running water. Made by Chaparral boats and called the Sunesta, we bought one too. And together we have had many, many great years of memories on the water with friends and family. For 24 years, the boat has been extremely reliable. I never took it in salt water, and we boated all the rivers and lakes from the Parker Strip to Lake Powell. The engine still looks like new and has required very little maintenance until now. One day we thought we'd go to the lake, so we checked the weather forecast and it looked perfect. There was no predicted wind, and being a weekday, we thought we'd probably be the only ones out on the water, which we were. Everything was going fine until all of a sudden I noticed the engine temperature gauge climbing fast. I quickly shut it off. They make over-temperature alarms, but I'm just used to looking at my gauges. I opened the engine compartment and nothing appeared to be wrong except for the motor being really, really hot. My first thought was to check the impeller. I did not think that could have been it because I had recently changed it out and it looked good. We floated for a while to let it cool down, started again, idle until it got hot. We did this over and over until we made it back to the ramp. It was back to the garage to see if I could figure out what was wrong. In the garage, I hooked up the hose muffs and the engine started normally, and to my surprise, the temp came up to normal and stayed there for a very long time. After everything checked out in the garage, I took it back down to the lake, but within a few minutes it began overheating again. I brought it back to the garage, hooked up the hose muffs again. It ran perfectly again. I even revved up the motor to try to make it overheat, and it would not. After talking with many mechanics, all of whom were booked up for 6 months, some offered to help me over the phone. They had many of the same suggestions, and I began trying things on my own. I tried different impellers with no success. Next was changing rubber seals in the outdrive. Got out my trusty manual. Our boat is a 1999 with SX outdrive. Here's an exploded view, and the parts for the water pickup are right here. There's a brass tube, a rubber seal, and a rectangle rubber seal. Well, the rubber parts did show some cracks and wear and tear. Nothing looked really terribly wrong. Besides that, all of these rubber parts were underwater anyway. I had never removed an outdrive, and it was not an easy job. But together with my son, we managed. We were able to replace parts, fluids, and grease that needed servicing anyway after so many years. After wasting so much time towing back and forth to the lake, I decided to put the outdrive in a tub of water to simulate being in the lake, and found there was no water coming from the pump. It would only work under hose pressure. Mechanics were convinced there was a blockage somewhere in the system. So I got out my pressure washer and I backwashed the cooling system to see if I could find a restriction, but I couldn't find anything wrong. I even backwashed the engine and removed the thermostat. Not even a grain of sand, nothing. I got in all those impossible places, removed manifolds, made custom tools, inspected everything, tightened hose clamps, thinking it might be sucking air. There were no leaks whatsoever. I even replaced the engine water pump with a brand new marine grade pump. With each change, I would get a few minutes of encouraging success, only to have it overheat again. I believe I had eliminated all other possibilities, and my only next step was to focus on the raw water pump. Since the inside of the original housing was worn from the impeller, I ordered a new brass housing. I was excited to install it and head to the lake with great expectations. It ran great for a few minutes, and then it began overheating. I loosened this top hose, which feeds back to the lake, to see if there was water there, and it blew off with steam and gave me a nice blister. When I got back to the garage and opened it up again, I thought maybe the back plate needed replacing also. So then I ordered a complete raw pump, fully assembled, complete with front housing, rear mounting plate, pulley, impeller, and O-ring. I installed the pump, and it would not even draw water from a bucket right next to it in the bilge. As I looked at it very closely, I could see that when screwed together, the brass backing plate and brass housing touched easily, and maybe the O-ring was not making a good seal. I thought it might be sucking air and not priming the pump. I ordered and tried thicker O-rings. I used grease. I used silicone gasket in a tube. I tried it dry and clean. Nothing worked. I measured every part with calipers, and they were all identical to the original Volvo pump. I had so many parts I started accumulating. I began mixing and matching to see if I could find a combination that might work. No such luck. Nothing I did changed anything. At the end of my rope, with no further ideas from all of the ride-along trips with mechanics, talking to my boating friends, and all of the online research, I didn't know what to do next. One day I was talking with my friend Randy Glazer, who is the administrator for our local Facebook page, Meadview South Cove Water Level Lake Info. I'll put a link in the descriptions. And little did I know, he said he had the same water pump and issues. The first thing he said was to find a Volvo OEM pump, which are discontinued dealer part now, on eBay or somewhere, spend the $500, put it on, and it will work. I promise. I was really skeptical after all I had been through and could hardly believe it would be that simple. But if you know Randy like I do, when he speaks, you can be sure it's the truth. So after putting the OEM pump on, I put the stern drive in a tub of water in the garage and ran it, and it worked perfectly. By the time I had gotten all the work done on the boat, the lake level had gone down so far that the Park Service had closed the concrete ramp and had made a primitive dirt area for us to launch in.